Milo gets home, closes the door, and doesn't take his shoes off. He just lies down on top of the covers fully dressed and doesn't move for 4 hours. Phone somewhere nearby, unopened, no show playing, no music, nothing productive happening in any direction. If you saw it from the outside, you'd probably call it laziness. Milo would probably call it that too. But what's actually happening in his body right now has almost nothing to do with motivation. Here's what nobody tells you about bed rotting. It's not avoidance, and it's not a lack of discipline, even though it gets labeled that way constantly. Sometimes by the very people doing it. There's a specific physiological state underneath it. And once you understand what it actually is, it stops looking like giving up and starts looking like something closer to a system forcibly shutting down for repair. Let's start with what happens to the body after prolonged stress that never got a proper release. Most people picture stress as something that comes and goes in clean spikes. A hard day, then recovery. But for a lot of people, especially those juggling constant low-grade demands, stress doesn't spike and drop. It accumulates. Psychologists call this allostatic load, the cumulative wear on the body from staying in a mildly activated state for too long without enough recovery in between. And here's the part that matters. Once allostatic load builds high enough, the body doesn't wait for permission to recover. It starts pulling the emergency brake on its own. This is where collapse rest comes in, and it's different from ordinary tiredness in a specific way. Ordinary tiredness responds to a nap or an early night. Collapse rest is what happens when the nervous system has been running on sympathetic activation, fight or flight, low level but constant, for so long that when the demand finally lifts, the body doesn't ease down gently. It drops hard, almost like a switch being thrown. Researchers studying stress physiology describe this as a shift into a dorsal vagal state, part of the parasympathetic nervous system associated with shutdown and conservation rather than calm, restorative rest. It's not relaxation. It's closer to hibernation. Here's the part that explains why bed rotting so often shows up specifically after periods of forced functioning, rather than during them. While the demand is active, deadlines, responsibilities, other people needing things, the body stays in a kind of survival mode, prioritizing output over repair because stopping isn't an option yet. But the moment that pressure lifts, even for a weekend, the nervous system finally registers that it's safe enough to stop performing. And what comes rushing in isn't relaxation exactly. It's often something closer to a full-body crash, because the body has been keeping score the entire time. And the bill only comes due once the coast is clear. But wait, there's a second layer that explains why it can feel almost impossible to do anything else during this state, even things that would normally feel enjoyable. Cognitive resources, the mental energy needed for decision-making, motivation, and initiating action, run on the same biological systems that get depleted by chronic stress. Psychologists sometimes call this ego depletion, though more recent research frames it less as willpower running out and more as the brain deprioritizing anything that isn't essential once its resources run low. Watching a show requires effort. Texting a friend back requires effort. Even choosing what to eat requires effort. During collapse rest, the brain isn't being lazy about these things. It's triaging, keeping only the bare minimum functions running while everything else waits. There's also something worth naming about why this specific behavior gets so much shame attached to it. More than other forms of rest. A lot of that shame comes from what researchers call productivity conflation, a cultural habit of measuring a day's worth by how much got done in it. Under that lens, hours spent lying motionless look like wasted time, a failure to optimize. But biologically, that framing gets it backward. The body isn't malfunctioning during collapse rest. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do when its warning systems finally get a chance to be heard. The waste wasn't the resting. The waste was however long the body had to keep pushing before it was allowed to. Here's something that reframes this pattern completely. People who experience frequent bed rotting are often not the least disciplined people around them. They're frequently the ones who've been holding the most together for the longest without a proper break. The reliable ones, the ones who kept showing up long after their nervous system was quietly begging for a pause. The collapse isn't a character flaw appearing out of nowhere. It's the direct physiological cost of a gap that had been building for a while between what was being asked of them and what recovery they were actually getting. It's worth saying clearly, because a lot of people feel real guilt about this without understanding the mechanism behind it. Lying motionless for hours doesn't mean you're falling apart, undisciplined, or wasting your life. It usually means your body finally got a moment where it felt safe enough to stop performing, and it's taking that moment seriously, even if your mind is still arguing that you should be doing something else with the time. The goal was never to force yourself out of bed through guilt alone. It's recognizing collapse rest for what it actually is, a legitimate biological process rather than a moral failure, and building in smaller, regular pauses along the way so the body doesn't have to wait until it's completely depleted before it's finally allowed to stop. If you've ever collapsed into bed the second real rest became possible, hit subscribe. And if you want to understand why adult ADHD diagnoses are exploding right now, and what that actually says about how we live, that video is going to explain more than you expect. Click it. Click it.